Murphy. And nothing on the router stuff. Once I get done finish packaging the SALT 2019 2.2, I'll update the Arista stuff to use SALT 2019.2.2.
Do you want to get started then, Wayne? I'm trying to ping Mirsha. In the meanwhile that he sees the message or tries to join, we can get started maybe.
Sure, yeah, sounds good. Well, Tim, have you done any exciting projects or any work on anything in the networking / SALT realm?
No, not recently. I'm trying to get on board with the customer I support. I'm trying to get involved in their SALT project because they're looking for some assistance. So I'm looking to get involved in that. Until that happens, I don't have a whole lot to talk about.
Okay, cool. Well, one of the big things that we've been working on lately is there's some of the networking switches, just trying to get a native minion available for those. So I believe that David Murphy, one of the SALT Core team members, has got a native minion working on the Arista switches. I know there are a couple other different devices that he's been working with as he's been able to.
Yeah,
so exciting news.
Yeah, we've been working with David as well. We're looking to get the same capability on the Junos platforms.
Nice.
So yeah, that is something I'm helping to drive internally as well.
Cool. Yeah. So that's definitely something exciting to get that work underway. I know there are a lot of people with a lot of really big switches and big SALT setups that will appreciate having that native minion capability. Aside from that, I haven't been back into any of the other networking issues that I've had talked about last couple of meetings. There's been some progress, but mostly we've been focused on getting the 2019 2.1 and now just recently, kind of this last week and into this week, the 2019 2.2 release out the door. So that's been kind of the forefront of everybody's mind around here. And then as far as the next things, I did mention, David's going to be working on some of the other switches, like the Junos, and there's some other ones. I'm not sure exactly which ones and in what order, but that'll be some good stuff to get that out.
Now, I'm just
yeah,
curious. What was the reason that was just never really available before? Was just that I'm guessing the architecture didn't really support it very well, and/or vendors were just paranoid about allowing that. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of it was vendor paranoia and how much of it was just simply a matter of time and then supporting the architecture itself, because it's a slightly different platform. I want to say that the Arista currently is Pi 2 and ARM, but I could be wrong. I haven't actually really been involved with that work. That's mostly just been David. But that's kind of the big challenge, is that if they are, I believe all the switches are running some type of Linux, but it's an embedded Linux. Typically it's 32-bit. I also want to say it's probably also typically ARM. And then also typically they are running a not exactly off-the-shelf distribution of Python. So you kind of throw all of those things together. and that means there are little hiccups here and there about what is or isn't available on these platforms. It's definitely not as straightforward as just going from, like, say, CentOS to Debian or something. You know, that's a relatively straightforward platform shift, but going to these switches can be a little bit of a challenge. The other issue too is they're also a little bit more constrained, where you may be able to run gigabytes and gigabytes of memory on a typical x86 machine. Some of these other ones may be running much smaller memory footprint.
Gotcha.
So that's another challenge that can be present. So those are kind of the biggest reasons that they don't exist. It's just kind of a matter of support. And when there's not as much demand from the general SALT community, then it's, you know, there's not so much call for that support. And
Gotcha.
that's kind of why it falls under the radar.
No, that's fair. Okay.
Yeah, so we're in our last stages of testing for the 2019.2.2 release. For those on the call, if you haven't been made aware of it, we are changing the SALT release strategy. In the past, we've had to maintain typically anywhere from 5 to 8 branches, I think, worth of development, where we're talking about the point releases and some of the other, and then the major branches, like earlier this year, we were maintaining develop 2019.2, 2019.2.1, 2018 .3.4, 2018.3, and I want to say 2017.7 and 2017.7.9. So we had a number of branches that we were trying to make sure that they stayed stable, and you know, it just really didn't work so well. So we made the decision that we're going to fall more in line with the typical development practice of just having a single master branch that we release from, that we focus our development on. There's been a SEP put out, so if you're interested in that, definitely go check out the SEP. But the long and the short of it is that our releases should be getting much more stable, and then in addition to the stability of the branches, we should also be able to release more frequently and more reliably, both things which I know have been historically kind of challenges for us, but by just focusing on the single release branch, that should make life a lot better for everybody. So if you know, if that's something that you weren't aware of, by all means, go check out the SEP. It's got all of the background information and should make everything clear that you may have questions about. But our goal, I believe, is to release our 2019.2.2 later this week, and get that release out. And then we'll be working on Neon and trying to get everything squared away for that release. One of the biggest challenges that we have right now is that, as I mentioned, we had 7 branches of development that we were trying to maintain. So we've got to get all of that stuff brought back into the Neon release. So there's numerous pull requests that that we've got to work through and get merged in. The SALT team's committed to merge those requests, just prioritized based on impact to the SALT community, and ease of porting. If it's something that's high impact and it's got tests and it's ready to merge in, it doesn't have any conflicts, it should be relatively quick. If it's something that's a bigger change and doesn't have any tests to help verify correctness, and especially in cases of bug fixes, if it doesn't have any regression tests, those are things that are going to take a little bit more time as we have to go in and write those tests. But if you are a contributor and you have pull requests that you've made in the past, by all means, you're welcome to go ahead and drive that effort to get that merged into master, which will be the Neon release. I guess I kind of forgot to mention this, but one of the points of going to the single branch and releasing more frequently, one of the questions that did pop up was around deprecation, and our existing deprecation strategy was 2 releases, but we are changing that to have a minimum of a year, which is basically what we had before. But this time it's codified, so we can release more frequently. Our goal is either a 3 or 4 month release cadence, but we could potentially release even more frequently than that. But with all those major potential for major releases, we don't want to pull the rug out from under anybody and be like, oh yeah, 2 releases in 6 months, and surprise, your feature is no longer there. So we're changing to a 1 year minimum deprecation cycle. So that should help alleviate any issues that one might have, worries around, oh, wait a minute, if we're releasing more frequently and we're supposed to be upgrading, what's going to happen to my features? Am I going to have to worry about these? But no, it should be pretty straightforward as far as that goes. Another, I think, welcome change is our change log previously had been pretty much just a list of the commits that we made for that release. But it's actually the first enhancement proposal was to change the changelog format to make it much more human readable. So if you're familiar with the Python changelog, our changelog is going to be much similar to that, where it's actually going to be useful to consume from a human perspective. So there's a site out there called keepachangelog.com, I think it is, but they kind of go through and specify this changelog format. You can also go read this up for more information too, but as we get to the Neon release, our changelog should be a much healthier format and much more human friendly. So it won't be like, oh, I've got to dig through 1,000 commits or so. It'll just say, here's everything that changed, here's everything that was removed, here's everything that was added, here's everything that was fixed. Just anything that a typical SALT user may need to know should be present in that changelog. And then especially as we continue going forward past the Neon release, we'll see a lot more helpful, I think, changelogs. So that should also be helpful for everybody who's looking to upgrade, because you'll be able to tell at a glance, okay, what things do I need to be aware of here? If I'm dealing with networking stuff and I don't have any napalm things, well, if the changes are in the napalm module, I probably don't care, right? So that should be a lot more helpful for people. So that's an exciting change that we've got going forward. I think that's probably it as far as kind of notable changes. Oh, one more other notable change. We have another enhancement proposal to adopt the black code formatter. I don't know if you're all, anybody is familiar with that, but it's an opinionated code formatter, so it makes it so that you can their tagline is adopted from Henry Ford's comment about the color of the Model T Ford, and you can have any color you like as long as it's black. So that's basically what the black code formatter does, is you can have your code formatted any way you like as long as it's black. And so there's a proposal to go ahead and adopt that formatter. One of the things that has been driving that is that there have been numerous pull requests where you've got to make some nitpicky thing and say, oh, hey, this doesn't really conform to the style. Can you go ahead and make this change? And of course, that those small little changes here and there, they add up over the course of time. So by having an automatic code formatter, the goal is that we no longer have to deal with that. You just run the formatter when you're done writing your code. It makes sure it matches. There are a couple of other automated formatting tools in that same proposal, but it boils down to running a single command locally before you commit. There's a tool called pre-commit that allows you to specify some hooks to run before you you commit your changes. So by doing that, that will eliminate any style inconsistencies that we have and allow us to focus on what the actual substance of the pull request instead of having to review style as well. So it'll take care of linting and auto formatting your code. So that's a somewhat substantial change, but hopefully a welcome one.
So can you say that? So that some of that stuff Tim, I just didn't quite, I've never worked with before. So what is that? It's doing what? It's auto formatting the pull requests?
Yeah, so there, of course, Python is white space significant.
Yes.
But there are a number of different things that you can do formatting wise that can change. Like for instance, and this happens in Salt a lot. If you have a function that takes 45 different parameters, I mean, in a normal code base, that's kind of an unpleasant thing. But in our reality, you may be configuring something that can take 45 different parameters. So there's really no reason to not have that available. But there are different opinions on what style of indenting that and how that should look. Should it be all on one single line and be 700 characters long? Should you wrap it after the comma? Where should everything be lined up? Should it be lined up with the opening parentheses? Should it be left flush? How should that work? And all of those are different. They're different styles, right? So, and of course, Python has PEP 8, which specifies particular styles within the Python project. That's, the community has fairly broadly adopted that as this is how our code should look, 4 spaces versus tabs, et cetera, et cetera. But there are a number of places where PEP 8 doesn't make a recommendation. And of course, the SALT project has made certain recommendations. And over the course of time, those may or may not have been adhered to very well, which leads to inconsistencies in the code base. So you may look in one module and everything is indented one way and everything else is formatted a different way. And so it becomes kind of a pain when you're hopping from module to module. It's like, okay, what formatting do I need to follow today? So when we adopt Black, Black just has one specific format, and we'll take your code and not necessarily rewrite, but reformat the code. As a matter of fact, Black, one of the things that Black does by default, it guarantees that the AST, so if you're familiar with compiling and, well, compilers in general, the code gets compiled into an abstract syntax tree in AST, and that's what Python believes your code looks like, because it doesn't really care about a lot of formatting. There's a number of things that you can do where Python's like, okay, whatever, but it compiles down to the same AST. So what Black does is when it rewrites the code, by default, it will ensure that this AST becomes the same. So when it changes the white space, for instance, within a set of parentheses, or you know, if it changes the call signature, if it changes the indentation there, it'll make sure that the AST parses to the exact same AST of your original code. So what that guarantees is that even though it may look different to a human, from Python's perspective, it's the exact same code. So that makes things more reliable. Of course, the challenge, I guess, is that on a code base the size of Salt, this will touch every single file in Salt.
Okay.
So that when we do implement this change, there will be a lot more scrutiny as far as the testing goes, and making sure that, yeah, we've actually tested this, both running our automated tests as well as running manual tests, and making sure that everything is as we expect it to be. But then the payoff down the road is that no longer do we care, right? On a PR, we don't have to look at the style. We don't have to think about that, because we know that Black is going to format it for us. And then we can just focus on, okay, what is this actually supposed to be achieving? And I don't know if you've ever looked at the Salt changelog before, but if you just search for the word lint in the 2019.2.1 release, I think it's over 1,000 commits, or certainly several hundred commits where, like, that's what it was doing, was just fixing the lint. So adopting this will eliminate all of those commits. We won't have to worry about seeing those anymore, because before you even make the commit, the tool will run and say, oh, here's some lint, we're going to fix it for you if we can, and if not, then you need to go ahead and fix this lint locally before you actually push your change. So that should help a number of situations. And when you multiply that over the course of time, right, it just compounds the benefits that you get from that. So
Okay.
Very much looking forward to that. It seems minor, but you know, it's one of those things that is a small change, but will have a good impact over time.
Cool. All right. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to run. I'm sorry. I have something at the bottom of the hour, but I do have to run. But,
no problem. Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything else to announce. So, Kavya, unless you've got anything that we need to be aware of, we can go ahead and end the meeting here.
I have nothing from my side, Wayne. We can end the meeting.
All right. Well,
Wayne.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Kavya. Thanks, Wayne.
We'll see you next time.
Have a good one.